Tanse. This is Natasha Delany here for episode 3 of Indigenous Projects and Events YouTube channel, and this is our Indigenous Speakers Bureau series. And so Indigenous Projects Events, if you don't know, is a full-service corporate event management company that specializes in Indigenous experiences. Some of our clients here in Edmonton, Alberta, are University of Calgary, St. Albert Chamber of Commerce, a lot of really amazing clients who are really wanting to incorporate and partner with Indigenous companies and create Indigenous-focused events. It's super amazing, and I'm super excited about the direction that we are going in terms of corporate truth and reconciliation strategies, diversity, equity, inclusion strategies, and, really seeing how many potential clients and opportunities that are coming up for us in our organization. And it's really why we started the Indigenous Speakers Bureau. For me, as an event planner, it was very, very difficult to find specific Indigenous speakers. And I thought, you know what, why don't I just have them come to me? And so we have a very amazing list of Indigenous speakers that each have their different areas of expertise. And so today we are going to be speaking with Orest Zwozdesky, and he is a proud Métis leader. He's an amazing leader, born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan, with deep roots in Green Lake. Orest is a reconciliation keynote speaker, a vision coach, a team builder, and he's a skilled workshop leader dedicated to fostering growth and connection. Orest has over 23 years of experience in personal and professional development. He has gathered transformative teachings from elders, mystics, and change makers, blending sacred traditions with practical insights. Through his powerful keynotes, workshops, and coaching, Orest inspires individuals and communities to embrace lifelong learning and unlock their individual potential. So please join me in welcoming Orest, whose work embodies the spirit of reconciliation and empowerment. Before I put him on, though, I do want to say that I will have his information in the show notes, his website, which is www.zwozdesky.com. They will be in the show notes for you to take a further look. And then, of course, obviously, going on to our website, which is www.Indigenous Projects and Events, so that once you learn a little bit about Orest and, what his specialty is, what he speaks on, who his target audience is, that you contact us and book him. So without further ado, here is Orest. Hello, Orest. How are you?
Hey, Natasha, thank you for that introduction. Well this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know we had to reschedule a couple times. I know they say like running on Indian time. You were sick, and then I was sick, and it's been a crazy, 2024.
Indeed, yeah.
So, Orest, can you tell us a bit about your background and how your Indigenous heritage has shaped who you are today?
Yeah, it's interesting because our audiences and people that I'm speaking to, working with a lot of times with them and say I'm probably the whitest looking Native person that you could hire to do any kind of work with your organization. I have an interesting take on things in a sense, because obviously Orest Zwozdesky, this name is a very Ukrainian sounding name, and my dad was Ukrainian. And my mom was Korean French, and so Métis family from up in northern Saskatchewan and Green Lake, as you mentioned in the intro. I never grew up around a Ukrainian family. I know who they are, but we don't know each other all that well, and we didn't spend hardly any time together growing up. I grew up on the Native side of my family all the time. I grew up going up north into northern Saskatchewan to visit my kokum and my Muslim, and be on the land. My relatives would gather together. They'd be hunting and fishing and doing all these kinds of things. And so I remember I used to love sitting around listening to my kokum and my aunties and my mom all sitting there talking Korean, and I'd always be like, "Mom, what are they saying? What are they saying?" And my aunt would look at me and she'd be like, "My boy, does Sears tell the baby their secrets?" And then everybody would be laughing, right? They'd all just be sitting there laughing away, smoking and talking and whatever. But it's kind of the way that I grew up, and so even throughout my life, always having Native friends, and then in my professional career, I think my first professional gig was in 1995. I started working in a correctional facility out in British Columbia, a federal correctional facility, yeah, I really started getting in touch with the ceremonies and elders and with those kinds of things, and so that stuff led to me finding my own healing pathway out of. I grew up in an environment where there was lots of violence and lots of alcoholism and stuff, and so my own healing path and who was my connection to spirit and my connection to the land and ceremonies and things like that helped to change who really helped me to become more of who I am, as opposed to who I was acting like I was or who I was pretending to be, because I just simply didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So my Indigenous identity has helped to ground and anchor me inside of 26 plus years of sobriety and in personal development and professional development and a career of working in the Indigenous community and working with Indigenous people and now working with non-Indigenous people around things like reconciliation and what I call collective visioning. And I've created this movement I'm calling the Vision and Voices Collective, which it's about everyone. It's the Indigenous people for sure, but it's really about everybody getting on board with us being able to heal ourselves and heal the planet and move forward in life in a good way.
That's amazing. So what is the collective called again? Oh,
It's
you
called
have Vision and Voices Collective.
Yes.
So when did you start that?
This is something that's been brewing for a while, but actively last year I really started putting it out there, and I'm building out a new website and different things to follow with all of that. But it's a global movement for change for people that want to come under the vision of oneness and find their own voice. Throughout my life, it's been a process of personal professional development of seeking a vision and finding my own voice, strengthening my own voice, and so this is just a natural banner that I operate under now, in terms of, especially working with our Native people and going into communities or organizations. Lots of people are getting into that space of understanding themselves and healing and things like that. And so, finding their vision, finding their way, finding their voice and strengthening their voice, being able to stand up in the world and be themselves and be strong and be successful and create the things in life that they want to create for themselves, for their families and the communities.
So growing up, as you said, more within your Indigenous family, did you find it difficult being as light-skinned as you are in a community where maybe you didn't look like everybody else? Was that difficult for you?
I think for myself, when I used to go up north, I might have just been too young or too naive to even pay attention to that stuff. And then as I got older, I remember one time, Mom, I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, maybe, and I went to go out of the house and for school in the morning, and I got this really thick cut piece of bannock with a slice of bologna in it, and my mom asked me, where are you going with that sandwich? I'm going to go to school. And she said, well, maybe eat it first or just leave it here and eat it later, because I didn't use this exact language, but this is what she was alluding to. She was alluding to the fact that I'm lighter skinned and that I can fly under the radar. And if I didn't let people know that I was Native, that would probably serve me better. And so that was the first time that something like that came into my awareness, where I was like, I'm not sure what that means, but I figured it out later, right?
Yeah.
And so I never thought of myself as any different. I just saw myself as, I didn't even think native, but as I got older, obviously we make the differentiations. I obviously knew that I was, more of a white, non-native looking guy, and yet somehow always identified with Native people. So I'm not even that sure how I navigated that. I think when I went into a community or something, like I'd go up north and my mom's Métis community is just like going on a First Nation. Everybody's like dark skinned, dark haired, brown eyed Native people. And then
Yeah.
here I am, and I used to just be in my glory when I went there. So I never really cared or thought about, being whiter looking or any of that stuff. Maybe because I didn't care, people didn't care either. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, right?
Yeah, that's really amazing, because for me it was like such a contrast, where I was raised not in my Indigenous culture, not on reserve, not around anybody that looks like me, all non-Indigenous Caucasian people, and really struggling with my identity. And so it's really interesting to hear that that was something that you really didn't struggle with. But obviously, if having this Vision and Voices Collective identity must have been something that you did struggle in some aspect at some point in time in your life.
Yeah, I think for me the struggle at some point, and I remember I was driving up to the Yukon. We were preparing for a fast, and it was probably, oh man, like early 2010s ish, like 12ish, something in that neighborhood. And I remember really, I was driving up to the Yukon, and I had this moment where, for whatever reason, the thing came on my radar, and I started thinking about, to use a term I don't usually, I hear this term, and so indigeneity, right? To think about myself as being a Native person. And I really dialed into this feeling inside of myself of deep acceptance of my Indigenous identity. I don't know if there was any particular thing triggered the thought. Somehow I was just thinking about, I'm going to do this fast, and I'm going to do these things, and I started doing facilitation work in communities, and maybe I was questioning my identity or something, but somehow I really tuned into this strong feeling inside myself that, what, I am an Indigenous person. And I love myself, and I love my teachings, and I love the elders, and I love the ceremonies, and I love the things that we were shown, and I loved the language. I even though I only know a little bit of language, I love when I do speak it, right? So I really dialed into some deeper state of acceptance around all that stuff, and so it really worked for me. I think it was just a part of a process I was undergoing as I was preparing for a fast.
So tell me more about the Vision and Voices Collective. What services, first of all, is it a non-for-profit? Is it a corporation? And what kind of services are offered? What is the objectives? Who's the target audience for Vision and Voices Collective? What is the vision?
Well, the Vision and Voices Collective the vision is like peaceful coexistence, just like the treaties. It's a global movement for change and the opportunity to a spirit of community and a spirit of oneness, regardless of whatever your ancestry is. I think this is a part of things that I've been sorting out, since last year around this Vision and Voices Collective is because I have two websites, Vision and Voices and Zwozdesky.com, and I'm doing, it seems like, two styles of different work, but really it is under the same banner of the Vision and Voices Collective. My personal development work and training that I do for First Nations people and Native people throughout Western Canada so far. That work has been through a program that started off with a particular name, but now I'm referring to it as the Evolutionary Edge. So there's an online version of a training, and then there's an in-person version, which is just a spiritually based program for personal development for anybody who's interested in growing their understandings. And obviously the teachings that I've been given, that's in the workshop. It informs how the workshop rolls out. But I do speaking work, and a lot of the speaking work that I have been doing is reconciliation-oriented speaking work in organizations, corporations, and I've been in nonprofit organizations. I had a lot of talks and things inside of places that were to do with addictions or wellness or things like that, holistic centers and things like that. But now the reconciliation speaking work is really starting to go in the direction of more corporate oriented and focused kind of work. And I've done team building gigs with organizations, and I'd like to roll that out more with corporate groups. I've been facilitating blank exercises for a long time, and out of that kind of spins out this process and program that I want to work on this year implementing, which is more about collective visioning and getting into that kind of work where we can look into the future collectively and see what our role is in particular with respect to reconciliation and being able to go inside of ourselves and find acceptance around whatever some of the historical things and to be able to build bridges amongst people and groups so that we can still come together in a family way on the land and in respectful relationship with one another. So that's part of what this collective visioning stuff is about. And again, more team building with Native groups and organizations and even non-Native organizations. That's been the bulk of the work that I've done on the reconciliation side of things, and I've done coaching work with different Native leader stuff, and so it's interesting because a lot of the work that I've done with leaders has been around, now I'm calling it collective visioning, but it's visioning. It's being able to bring a mindset out of just this me focus into this we focus. So it's the best for everybody and working on things like communication and being speak to one another in ways that we can build up relationships and build bridges with one another.
Yeah. No, and these are just like the conversations that I find are really very prominent, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, especially in terms of like Indigenous leadership and what that looks like, and decolonizing workspaces. And that being said, when you were speaking earlier, I was thinking about one of the services that we will be rolling out, Indigenous Projects and Events, potentially in partnership with an amazing, well-known bank. And that is the rolling out of a service that includes, because our mission here at Indigenous Projects and Events is to help bridge the gap between Indigenous peoples and enterprises through experiences, which hence event management is part of that. But I really wanted to be able to tie in this truth and reconciliation strategies. I find a lot of companies are, especially the ones that have truth and reconciliation strategies, diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies, and they've had them for years now, are really looking for that next level experience. And they've done all of the workshops, they've done the blanket exercise, they've done these things, and they're looking to learn, to understand. In Indigenous culture, there's the ways of knowing, being, doing, and connecting. I think it is those four things. So they're really looking for this next level of understanding, not just for their leaders, but for their employees, for their managers, for senior level executives. And this organization, this bank, is province-wide. And so they're not the only company that has been looking for the next thing that I've been speaking to and that we've worked with. And so something that's in the works is potentially creating experiences such as sweat lodge, such as powwows, taking a group to powwows, such as these very experiential things. The understanding of, the way the pipe moves, or why we brush each rock as they come into the sweat lodge with a sweetgrass feather. Like, those are very different perspectives and understandings of, you know, why we do things, of the world, and the relationship that we have with ourselves, with our mother, and with the world around us. And so partnering with this organization to create these experiences for them, and then putting this out to market. And so I feel like, you know, this vision and voices collective that you have created, and are in the process of continuing to build upon, and as it evolves, might have lots of what's the word? Like lots of
intersectionality.
Yes, with, you know, what this service is going to be about.
Interesting. Yeah, you know, there's so many. There are so many intersections that are coming together, and we're in a place where it's like trying to colonize spaces, or trying to indigenize spaces, or, you know, all of these things are so interesting to me because there's language, the language attached to things. It's like language is tricky, right? And the way that we go about bridging these gaps is also tricky, especially when you're talking about like spiritual things, or ceremonies, or things like that. Bridging some of those gaps can be a little bit tricky sometimes, and so that's why I'm a big proponent of moving a little slower maybe than progress in the world, sort of, I guess, but being okay with that. Just so that I'm doing things mindfully, and that I'm doing things respectfully, and maybe that's just maybe that's just me showing my age. I don't know, but I'm a big proponent of taking our time and just moving nice and easy, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves, and at the same time taking a look out there into the future and connecting with our future selves around what does reconciliation look like in 2040. And this is a thing that's on my website, because 2015, March 2015 was when they had the last TRC meeting here in Edmonton, and I went down to the old Shaw Conference Center at the time, what it was named, and took part in those sessions and meetings and things. And 2015 is when the recommendations came out, and the report and all this stuff. So 2040, that's 25 years later. We're only 15 years away from 2040, and 25 years into reconciliation. It's like, what, where's the measurement stick sort of move to? Like, where, how many things have been accomplished, or what have we been done? And it almost seems like here we are, 10 years later, and now people are just starting to catch wind of this movement change that's blowing across the nation in terms of reconciliation, and now people are jumping on board, and it's like, yeah, that's fascinating to me.
So I want to know what is coming up for you. I know you said you don't like to, talk about it, but I'm going to make you. What's coming up for you? What kind of events do you have coming up? Do you have anything booked and scheduled for 2025 so far?
I'm going to be meeting with somebody very soon who does a series of events, and wants me to be the MC for their events coming up. And I think the first one is in March, where I'll be emceeing the event. I just got done in November co-emceeing an economic reconciliation event that occurred in Edmonton, with a committee that was attached to End Poverty Edmonton, and a variety of organizations, City of Edmonton, and Indigenous services and all this. So I've got the gig going to be coming up. I think there's 4 or 5 events for emceeing, and more events for emceeing continue to pop, which is great. Which I love emceeing. So I'm always open to doing coaching work. I've got an online summit that's going to happen, which is not reconciliation based. I've got an online summit that's happening January 23rd to the 25th, called the Evolutionary Emergence. which again is, I really am into this, in reconciliation, but even just generally speaking, for the planet and for people in the world, that there's this, evolving nature of things, and that there's this emerging future that we're connecting to, and that to mindful about connecting with our future self and what it is that we're co-creating in the world. So that's an online summit that's happening January 23rd to the 25th. I don't have any team building things in the books at this moment, and I was always looking forward to putting something down in the books. And this year I'm going to start rolling out this process called the collective visioning, which I don't have any gigs, but I have organizations in mind that I want to test drive this mechanism with, if you want to call it that, this method of collective visioning. So those are the kinds of things that I'm up to right now. But I've got some committees that I sit on, and that things are always in the works around indigenization and stuff like that. So that's kind of ongoing things. I don't have any corporate gigs booked at this point, but things always just show up. Even like energetically speaking, talking about the emerging future. Here we are talking about these kinds of things, and this just up levels some kind of visibility in the laws of forces of the universe. And so it won't surprise me when things are showing up again, now that I'm putting energy on it, right?
Amazing. Orest, I'm so glad that you showed up today, and that we were able to have this conversation finally. If anybody wants to get a hold of you in terms of, whether it's team building, whether it's this summit coming up in January, they can visit your website. And can they also follow you on social media?
Yeah, social media, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as Orest Zwozdesky. I'm on Facebook as Orest Zwozdesky. I'm on Instagram, but I don't even hardly know how to use Instagram. So
I'm still trying
to
up
my goal for the year.
Yeah, that's my goal too, is to up my Instagram game.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you again. And again, we will have all of the information in the show notes. Thank you so much, Orest.
Thank you, Natasha. Bye, everyone.